What is up, everybody? So for today's video, we're going to be checking out Rick and Morty Season 7, Episode 1, Breakdown, Easter eggs, and details you missed. Basically, I basically got something to tell y'all. I'm not going to be watching Rick and Morty Season 7, and here's my reason. They literally got rid of Justin Roiland, bro. That's basically saying you got rid of 50% of your cast. Like, what the fuck? Yeah, man, and I basically watched about like 2 minutes of the first episode, and I was like, nope, not watching it. But, yeah, man, I'd rather just be watching a breakdown of it, because, I don't know, man, it just, the voices, bro, the voices bring it off, bro. How come they just didn't do, like, an AI voice? I don't know, man, I don't know. Anyways, man, if you guys like this video, give this video a thumbs up, and let's just check this shit out. Ready? 3, 2, 1, boom.
Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Eric Voss, and this is a breakdown of Rick and Morty Season 7, Episode 1, How Poopy Got His Poop Back. A profoundly titled episode, but a nod to how Stella got her groove back. It's a solid season premiere, I gotta say. Great jokes, awesome callbacks, clever animation bits, Easter eggs, and a full tribute to Hugh Jackman and his career. I am gonna break down a ton of details that you might have missed in this episode. Okay, this season now features Ian Cardoni as Rick Sanchez and Harry Belden as Morty Smith, and I really gotta hand it to them and to the casting team, because I gotta admit, I often forgot while watching this that these were new actors voicing the parts. I at least found the transition to be pretty seamless, aside for a few moments, but I think a lot of that is really in our mind, and I'm gonna break down why. You're welcome to disagree with me. This is just really my take on why we should just be okay with this. The episode opens with the Smith family, including Space Beth, that's Beth Clone, who returned as regular in Season 6. They complain about their house guest, Mr. Poopy Butthole, and Jerry complains that he's messing with his TiVo.
It's an antique. The buttons are fragile.
I just love the idea that the family has an interdimensional cable box, but despite having that technology, Jerry's still using TiVo, technology that really hasn't been a relevant service in the past like 5 to 10 years, but I guess he just doesn't know how to work the interdimensional cable or isn't allowed to use it. A drug dealer hits him up for cash.
Yeah, I prefer the term pharmacist.
So do they!
Solid burn from Beth about pharmacists who have had a mixed track record in this country for overprescribing opioids to addicts. Watch Dope Sick, it'll make you really sad, but it's a very important thing to watch. And this might be something Beth might be particularly sore over as a healthcare provider, at least to horses, who has watched her father suffer from addiction. Mr. Poopy Butthole is in rough shape. We last saw him in the Season 6 finale, the stinger scene, looking jacked as he told us that he was rebounding from his divorce from Amy by getting fit and then promptly breaking his legs by squatting too much weight. Now he's completely relapsed. In the corner, we see Custody Law for Dummies, and when we see a pullback shot of that cover later, it has white figures tug-of-warring over a child. So sad, and exactly what Mr. Poopy Butthole will do with his kid later this episode. His bathrobe is monogrammed M. I thought it was for Mr. Poopy Butthole. His first name is Wayne, though, so maybe this is Morty's bathrobe. He says,
Bet you didn't expect to see me in a cold open, huh?
yeah, a bit of a meta nod to the voice cast switches. John Allen now voices Mr. Poopy Butthole, and I think a lot of people might have been surprised to see yet another Roiland voice character show up here. Mr. Poopy Butthole references when Beth shot him back in Season 2's Total Recall episode.
Oh yeah, gosh
Now
damn
he's
it.
completely
Yeah, he
relapsed. In the
freaking
corner, we
voiced him
see
too.
Custody
Gosh
Law
damn
for
it.
Dummies, and
He
when we
voiced-
see a pullback shot
man.
of that cover later, it has white figures tug-of-warring over a child. So sad, and exactly what Mr. Poopy Butthole will do with his kid later this episode. His bathrobe is monogrammed M. I thought it was for Mr. Poopy Butthole. His first name is Wayne, though, so maybe this is Morty's bathrobe. He says,
Bet you didn't expect to see me in a cold open, huh?
yeah, a bit of a meta nod to the voice cast switches. John Allen now voices Mr. Poopy Butthole, and I think a lot of people might have been surprised to see yet another Roiland voice character show up here. Mr. Poopy Butthole references when Beth shot him back in Season 2's Total Recall episode. He finds a new bottle of booze, and you can see the frames on the wall in the background are askew. One of them is cracked, presumably from when he chucked a bottle at the wall. After an opening title sequence that probably has some episodes that we're never going to see, like there's one where the dance-off between Beth and Space Beth in a dessert-themed kingdom, and another where Rick and Morty are skiing/snowboarding on their own tongues, and I like how the movement of the skiing and snowboarding is different when Rick has a poles and Morty doesn't. The swerving is exactly the way you center your gravity on whether you're skiing or snowboarding. Anyway, back to the episode. Rick continues his search for Rick Prime. That's his white whale, his nemesis, who killed his wife and daughter. In Dimension C-137, he spent much of Season 6 hunting this guy down, but he left Morty behind with a robot version of himself in the second half of that season. On the screen, we see the yellow central finite curve. That's a spiral display of the multiverse that was first shown in the Season 5 finale, Rick, Morai, Jack. Rick sarcastically says that Morty just missed his showdown with Rick Prime, calling it a big sword fight atop the Hoover Dam.
He fell and landed on a sharp spike, and then whispered, "Thank you," like a werewolf.
I was asking to be polite.
I'm not sure, but there seems to be a reference to the 1992 film Universal Soldier, which has a sequence in the Hoover Dam and ends with Jean-Claude Van Damme impaling Dolph Lundgren on spikes, but there's no respectful werewolf style. Thank you. Now,
Hey kids, do you want a friend who will never leave your side? Introduce.
What the fuck?
Now, this is just from my hearing, but Harry Belden is a seamless Morty, but Ian Cardone seems to be wavering a bit as Rick, but I actually think it's totally fine. It just sounds like that to us, and if you compare his Rick to Justin Roiland's voice in Season 1 and Season 2, he sounds a lot more like the original core of the character. It's just that we, the viewers, began to hear Rick in recent years as an increasingly grumbly Roiland, who would sometimes drink in the ADR booth. I actually highly recommend you read Scott Marder and Dan Harmon's interview with The Hollywood Reporter about their casting process. Apparently, thousands of candidates were narrowed down to hundreds, and Ian Cardone was actually one of the first they heard and marked as having flashes of Rick. Apparently, the names of the applicants were completely hidden from Harmon, and he said, quote, "Your ears very quickly get so confused when you're trying to tell the difference between a 9.5 and a 9.7 on a does this sound like my friend scale." It's a fascinating article. Again, please read it. So Rick's solution for Mr. Poopy Butthole is to scare him away with a robo-ghost. He first creates a sentient robot and uploads business, but unplugs it at 77% so that it'll be unfinished business, but then after killing it, the ghost drops through the floor.
Okay, I need to make gravity part of its finished business and leave floors unfinished.
It kind of reminds me of when Morty dropped the lightsaber directly through the floor in the Season 6 finale, with this ghost just keep going further and further down to the core of the planet. So Rick calls out the intervention format as something that he says has a 10% success rate comedically and clinically. In his eyes, referring to real-world interventions, 10% sounds a bit low there, but he's also referring to when interventions have been used as a comedic premise in sitcoms. And I kind of feel like this is Dan Harmon speaking from the writer's room, as many TV shows have had an intervention episode, but if you think about it, Dan Harmon shows like Unity and Rick and Morty typically stage intervention-esque conversations in more active context, so that it's really characters confronting each other's behavior in the pursuit of something else. And that's what this episode does. It's not characters all sitting around in a circle, it's characters actively doing something and having that meaningful conversation in the pursuit of that mission. Beth mentions the ghost.
And not with a ghost.
Ooh, that's interesting. You kind of gave him a little power by mentioning him. There's a lot of science to unpack about ghosts.
Yeah, this seems to adhere both to the afterlife concept of people having second lives so long as people keep them in their memories, but also the Beetlejuice rule, where if you mention his name 3 times, he appears. This is something Dan Harmon played with in my favorite gag from the series Community.
Where your study buds will go. What's the blonde's name? Bitter Butter Beetlejuice?
This Gwynnifer must be real special. Don't you usually wear the stripy turquoise Beetlejuice numbers?
There's nothing in your playlist but Spooky Party, the Beetlejuice soundtrack, and NPR podcast.
So Rick puts a crew together for Mr. Poopy Butthole's intervention, including Gearhead, aka Revolio Clockwork Jr., who has a Rack and Pinions pinup poster. Next, Squanchy.
Squanch! Told you he wasn't dead.
We squanching?
Yeah, Squanch has made several cameos over the years, like in memories and in flashbacks, since his supposed death in the Wedding Squatchers episode, but apparently this is either being retconned or he's being pulled from another universe. Each time they recruit a new intervener for this, they respond with a "you son of a bitch" type response, like in the Heist episode, Season 4, Episode 3, One Crew Over a Crew Crew's Morty. By the way, if you're interested in my breakdown of that episode, I did break down all of Season 4 on this channel. You can go find that. Next, we visit the home of Bird Person, where we see his daughter with Tammy, Bird Daughter, messing with her phone on the couch, and there's a jacket with what looks like various rebellious patches, anti-Federation stuff. There's also a magazine, Beak Talk, and then some frames on the wall of several images of Bird Person with Rick, as well as the band they had with Squanchy, the Flesh Curtains. This video is sponsored by Dungeon Hunter 6, the newest game in the Dungeon Hunter franchise. Dungeon Hunter 6 is a free-to-play iPhone 15 Pro Max, PS5, Apple Watch, and more starting October 13th. Bird Person says that he found a severed Grompoline arm and her Federation hit list, so it just seems like Bird Daughter rebels both against her father and her mother Tammy with the Federation. Bird Person says that she was imprisoned in a femme fatale training camp, and I don't know what that means, but it sounds crazy. So the next recruit is a Smith's longtime neighbor, Gene, who's mowing his grass, but his riding lawnmower just keeps going on and kind of becomes a maximum overdrive scenario where the machines come to life. It pushes a parked car into the street, so it violently kills this motorcyclist cyclist, and we'll next see it in the post-credit scene. We'll talk about that later. So they take Mr. Poopy Butthole to a restaurant called The Fuse. Inside, the bar stools are butts with heart tattoos and slap marks on the cheeks. Over the bar, it reads, "The first is free." A neon sign reads, "Copyright Proof Beers." So, you know, the animators wouldn't have to pay licensing fees. A banner reads, "You puke, we laugh." There's another banner with someone just puking. There's a sign that says, "No black light allowed." Gross. Mr. Poopy Butthole says that he hired a predator as a PI, referring to the Yautja race from the Predator franchise. We see the app on his phone. It's like an old GeoCity style website design with last update 2001. Mr. Poopy Butthole reveals,
This is a great place to celebrate my birthday. 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 Birthday.
now I hate to pull a Simpsons dead it because I'm sure the shots of an alien with 5 belly buttons, but if you count, there are only 5. There's one for Mr. Poopy Butthole, one for Squanchy, one for Rick, one for Bird Person, one for Gearhead, and then not another one for Gene. So yeah, he really is drinking out of something else. Then they go to a universe where everyone is a bottle or a can, so they basically drink their innards, which is horrifying. Then they party in the cement mixer party truck with the sloshing liquor in it. Gene asks for a toilet, and there actually is one, but there is a sign over it forbidding pooping in it. Many people have tried that before, I guess. But then when it rotates, all the piss dumps into the booze, which is just so gross because it means most of this liquor is probably pee. Then they go to a club where honey drips on Rick, which is a reference to the 1998 Blade film where blood drips on the clubber before it just sprays down from the nozzles. This is a B club. It's not another planet though, it's just the normal universe. And here they meet Hugh Jackman, and Jackman actually voices himself for this episode, which is crazy. Rick says,
Makes sense he recognizes me. We both hosted the Oscars.
this is a reference to how Dan Harmon and Rob Schraub are in contact with Hugh Jackman. I'm thinking they both were on the writing team when Hugh Jackman hosted the Oscars in 2009. They were part of the group that came up with all the bits for the opening monologue and a musical number, which I will always remember because it has this amazing joke where Hugh Jackman's doing like a musical bit about the reader. I never read the reader. And he's just wearing these like silver jumpsuits because he has no idea what the reader's about. And Rob Schraub and Dan Harmon were actually nominated for Emmys for their writing for that. Here we see Hugh Jackman wearing a white tank and jeans, which is his common Wolverine attire. His belt buckle has 3 claw marks, of course, for the Wolverine scratches. Turns out Hugh actually knows Gene because he married his cousin, meaning Gene's cousin must be Deborah Lee Furness, whom Hugh Jackman was married to from 1996 to this year. They actually just got separated this past September. The Jack Shack is actually full of nods to Hugh Jackman's films. There's the Jackman poster with Hugh Jackman as all the different X-Men, not the other actors in the X-Men movie. Nearby one actually reads Les Jackmans for Hugh Jackman's role in the 2012 Les Miserables film. There's also a nude portrait of Hugh Jackman with his Wolverine claws out. If you look closely, the beer on the table are all Hugh Jackman brands like Jack and something, and it's like an Australian label. There's Hugh's Pale Ale. There's also, we later see the Rick and Morty classic Foamies brand of beer. Bird Person does the knife through the fingers trick that Bishop does in Aliens. Hugh has a trophy case that includes a fist with 3 Wolverine claws, and then frames over it include a marriage photo that I assume is with Deborah Lee Furness. There's a TV Awards photo with The Rock. There's also a framed photo of Hugh with his real-life dog Allegra, an exact recreation of this photo. But here in animation, they made Allegra look like a brown version of Snuffles, aka Snowball, Morty's past dog from season 1. Hugh calls the statuette a Tony Award, but really the Tony statuette is actually a disc that shows the comedy and drama masks. It's not like the masks separated like this, but Hugh Jackman did win season 1. Nod to RoboCop's frames over it include a marriage photo that I assume is with Deborah Lee Furness. There's a TV Awards photo with, it's actually the result of the Predator P shot. Squanchy's leg is a rounded off stump disconnected from his foot, but I do love the continuity with the gash still in his paw. Actually, from here on in the episode, you'll notice it is bandaged. Beck Bennett voices the Robo-Ghost. Nick Rutherford wrote this episode, and Nick Rutherford, Beck Bennett, Kyle Mooney, and Dave McCary were all part of a sketch group called Good Neighbor. Gene and Hugh reenact the Say Anything stereo bit with Hugh Jackman singing the lyrics to Billy Ocean's Caribbean Queen, but Amy's levitating is actually the result of the Predator PI cradling her, so Mr. Poopy Butthole kidnaps his son, and Rick recommends doing the mud thing, a nod to Schwarzenegger cloaking himself in mud and Predator to hide. The Predator uses his 3-point laser sight to track them. He really has all of his familiar gear, the retractable spear, the razor sharp net. Squanchy pulls out his tooth to drink a growth formula like he does in Wedding Squanchers, but he throws up from all the crap they've been consuming. The Predator stuffs Gearhead's nuts into his mouth.
Why is this my thing?
This is a callback to Season 2, Episode 2, Morty Night Run, when Rick does the same move to him. Mr. Poopy Butthole references Season 4, Episode 3, which was the heist episode, One Crew Over the Cuckoo's Morty, which shows Mr. Poopy Butthole beating the crap out of all the students in his class. They end up dogpiling on the Predator, and Mr. Poopy Butthole's like, give me that big old tooth! Rick Rick, meanwhile, wants a skull since the Predator collects skull trophies from its victims, but they're able to make peace, and the Predator gives Mr. Poopy Butthole a musket, but Hugh Jackman returns and knocks him out with a Grammy statuette. The Grammy is for Caribbean Queen, written by Hugh Jackman, age 16, which feels like a totally fake Grammy that he or his new agent maybe made for himself to justify his stupid lie to himself, and for whatever reason, Hugh Jackman covered himself in mud naked. His crotch region is blurred out. So they eat at Taco Tambourine, and Bird Person's phone alert is 2 eagle cries. Bird Person tells Rick it was canonical to see him, probably not to this Bird Person's appearance as a solidly canon episode with repercussions for future events, because, you know, that's not always the case when these characters appear. The episode shifts into Mr. Poopy Butthole's voiceover as each of them fade away, a reference to the epilogue sequence of The Sandlot, of all movies to reference, in which the narrator references everyone's features as they dissolve out of the shot. Mr. Poopy Butthole says Hugh went home to glue together the Tony Award that he had broken, which reminds me of the epilogue in my favorite episode of The Office when Jan has to glue together Michael Scott's Dundee Award after she had broken it. And Mr. Poopy Butthole says also to put a bullet in all future Wolverine references, thanks to us, because yeah, now any future Rick and Morty reference to Wolverine is going to be contextualized by what happened in this episode. Rick reveals that these fades are actually the result of fading pills, and he gets ahead of all the social media excuse me's by saying that Gearhead's taxi fading was caused by the pill, thinking that the taxi was his overcoat. So the episode's post-credit scene catches up with the riding lawnmower and the small-town sheriff committed to bringing it down. The cinema marquee has what I think are my favorite references this episode. The movies that were playing at this theater were Jan Quadrant to Vincent 16. That's from the Interdimensional Cable 2 episode. That was an improvised movie title from Roiland starring Jan Michael Vincent. And he just swapped out Michael for Quadrant, so it's Jan Quadrant Vincent 16. The other movie looks like it was Two Brothers Tomato Monster. Of course, the Two Brothers movie from the first Interdimensional Cable episode, 60 Minutes. The sheriff stalls by kissing his Celtic cross, his locket, his clover pendant, his Bible with a bullet in it, and then he sings this song. These lyrics are actually from a real Irish ballad called The Hills of Donegal, but the lawnmower just runs him over, and in the bloody mess, we see all these 4 good luck charms, along with a button for Guinness World Records Most Superstitious Man. Whew, that is a lot of Easter eggs in this episode, with nods to Wolverine, Community, Simpsons, Hugh Jackman's Oscar monologue, Predator, Blade, Aliens, The Sandlot. I feel like this episode was made for me, so I just really loved and appreciated breaking it down, and hopefully we'll be able to keep doing these this season. All of the episodes of Rick and Morty Season 6 were broken down for us by Whitney Van Lanningham, who did an incredible job, and now she's breaking down new episodes on her channel, Whitney Vision. So please subscribe and watch her videos there. Please subscribe to New Rockstars, like this video, and comment down below with your favorite part of this episode and your general. And now she's breaking down new episodes on her channel, Whitney Vision. So please subscribe and watch her videos there. Please subscribe to New Rockstars, like this video. Cable 2 episode that was an improvised movie title. Blade, Aliens, The Sandlot. I feel like this episode was made for me.
Anyways, man, yeah, man, I'm not gonna be watching Rick and Morty Season 7. I will only do it if you really would want me to watch it, but other than that, I'm not gonna be watching it. Anyways, man, thank you guys. Anyways, guys, thank you guys so much for, thank you guys so much for checking out, my reaction to this. Give this video a thumbs up. And I'll see y'all in the next video. Peace out, motherfucker.